Welcome to Senior Living Marketing Perspectives. I'm Debbie Howard, co-founder of Senior Living Smart, and today I'm speaking with Mike Miller, President and CEO of Primo Solutions and the author of Stop Selling and Start Caring. So welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Deb. It's great to be here.
It's great to see you, although we usually see each other this time of year at industry conferences. Obviously, that's been put on hold. And just to put this into context for the listeners, we are recording this at the end of April of 2020, which is right kind of in the middle of a new reality that we're all experiencing together of COVID-19. And when I thought about the podcast and the guests, my dream guests that I wanted to have on it, Mike was at the top of the list. And I thought back to his book, Stop Selling and Start Caring. And I thought how relevant that is today, because a lot of what our traditional salesy sales methods, we typically fall back on, really not available to us. And so, maybe this is the time, Mike, when salespeople can't sell in that traditional way, that maybe they can learn something new and start with more empathy and more caring. So maybe take us back to, when and why you wrote the book and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thanks, Deborah. Great question. And I'd love to introduce the book, but to properly introduce the book, for those who have read some of my books, they know that I have other books I've written. And I actually wrote my first sales book, which was Selling at Combat Speed. And a lot of people kind of frown upon that. They're like, hey, we're not in combat, but it really has nothing to do with combat. As a combat veteran, being in the military, whenever we train certain tasks, we just trained over and over and over and over and over until it became part of our muscle memory. Kind of like athletes, professional athletes, they don't have to think about the task or what they're doing. They just get up and they kind of just do their thing because it's part of their muscle memory. We do the same thing in the military. So when you are in a combat situation, you don't have to stop and think about it. You just kind of react. And my thought was, how can I take those fundamentals and transfer those also into corporate America? So we're training our people in a way that the sales process is something that comes to them just automatically. It's a process they're using and it kind of flows, they adapt and overcome. And it worked well for several years. I actually spoke about this and trained in a number of different verticals, but as most people know that know me, we've dedicated the past 15 years to the senior living industry. So people start asking, hey, Mike, when are you going to write a book about sales just for our industry? And finally, in 2011, I wrote Stop Selling and Start Caring. An interesting thing about the books that I write is normally I'll write the book and then I'll come up with the title. And as I was right in the middle of writing Stop Selling, Start Caring, I had a colleague call me, and it was another vendor that thought, hey, there's might be some synergies between our companies. And as we started talking, I found out that he had just moved his mother into a senior living community. And he said, Mike, he goes, I called, 8, 9, 10 different places. I went to visit 2 or 3 different communities. He goes, and the one thing that was consistent, that was really hard, is that nobody ever asked me how I was doing as the adult child.
Right.
And it felt like, he goes, I know that these people care, but I felt like they really didn't care. That all they cared about was, my mom and what she qualified for and what her needs were. Not one single person had asked him how I was handling, how I was challenging it. He said, Mike, if you can do me a favor, I know you speak all the time, you go to conferences, you're training, you're coaching. Every time you talk, will you let people know that even though they do care, that they need to kind of change their approach and quit coming across so salesy, but let us know that they really do care about not just the prospect, but all of us. And that's how the birth of the title came in. Is like, let's take the salesy part out of it, that you hear about so much. It gives us such a bad name for sales. And let's really care about the prospect. Let's care about the family members, what they're going through in that period of time, and really focus on the needs and their solutions, and not take it from a sales perspective. I tell people all the time, the sale will take care of itself if we really just genuinely care about the prospect. So that's how the whole birth of Stop Selling, Start Caring came along.